wrong. To grow up strong and undo wrong.
Ino woke up in the middle of the night, desperately needing a drink of water. She disentangled herself from Prisben's slumbering form, the bedsheets, and some loose clothing, not necessarily in that order, before finally managing to stumble to her feet. Fumbling her way through an unfamiliar apartment in the dark was no easy feat, but Ino eventually reached the kitchen. She knew she found it when she stubbed her toe on the water reclaimer. Cursing softly, Ino grabbed a plastic cup, filled it, drank, refilled, and drank again. She started to place the cup in the matter recycler, but then stopped herself. Stupid, wasteful, can't think straight like this, Ino muttered to herself as she shuffled back toward the bedroom. Prisben was stirring. "Hey there," he said. "Light sleeper?" Yeah, Ino muttered. "Now if only I could see in the dark." Ino looked down. Her bare foot was caught on something, clothes or a blanket. Ino took her eyes off Prisben and knelt down to grab whatever was about to trip her. "So, you confess that you have some faults. How unexpected. Noble, but unexpected." Ino realized her foot had gotten caught in a discarded skirt. She started to free herself from it, but froze when she noticed that the sound of Prisben's voice had changed. "Huh? What did you say?" "I was remarking on how eloquent you are. It is a trait not often found in primitives." Prisben's voice was deeper now, much deeper, and contained a hiss like a snake. "Hey, I know we were kinda acting like animals earlier, but you don't have to call me that," Ino replied, tossing the loose skirt across the room. She was still facing away from Prisben. "Oh, come now. I thought you would appreciate that I refrained from calling you a savage." Comprehension slowly started to leak into Ino's brain. That voice did not belong to Prisben. A hand closed on Ino's wrist. "Come here, girl." "Don't call me a girl," Ino started to say, but Prisben pulled her backward with such force that pain shot up her arm. "Ouch! Not so hard!" Suddenly, Ino was lying face down on the bed, feeling the full weight of Prisben pushing down on her. No, Prisben isn't that heavy. "What's going on?" Ino gasped, her voice muffled by the pillow. Ino found some strength and managed to roll herself over. She looked up and screamed. Prisben was gone. In his place, looming overhead, was an alien. Huge, dark, menacing. It was a Destican male. Ino knew that Desticans are an exceptionally rare type of alien species called necroids. They carry an aura of death with them wherever they go. And now, this one was leering at Ino, the curved shape of his horns disappearing into the darkness that pressed in from all sides. His hair, long, black, and greasy, fell in sheets around Ino, cutting off her field of view so that all she saw were those vivid orange eyes set upon a dark face. "I have never been so enthralled," the Destican said, his voice dripping with emotions and implications that Ino did not like. "After I witnessed your deeds, I knew I must come closer. I must know more. I must feel you." Ino felt one of his hands running down her body. She struggled, tried to throw him off, but his own strength was overwhelming. To make matters worse, the expression on his face shifted. He was enjoying this. He took a deep breath. You are intoxicating, he said. Ino tried to throw him off again, struggling so violently that sharp pain was now shooting along her arms and legs. The Destican attacker stopped groping Ino and brought his free hand back to her face. He grabbed Ino by the throat and forcefully turned her head until she was looking into his eyes. It was destiny that brought me here, the Destican whispered to Ino, his face dangerously close to her own. The will of the universe commanded that I witness you, and I am glad to have obeyed. I will savor this meeting and await the day when I find you in the corporeal plane. And then the attacker leaned forward and kissed Ino on the mouth. She screamed again, pushing and fighting as hard as she could, but nothing she did could unlatch his mouth from her. And then a searing pain started somewhere else on her body. It was worse, a far greater agony than anything that had come before. Ino focused on it, wrapped her mind around the pain until... Ino sat bolt upright in the bed, screaming as loud as she possibly could and flailing her arms, fighting to escape her captor. Prisbin, who had been gripping her wrist, was thrown off and hit the floor. Ino! Prisbin gasped. Ino, wake up! Wake up! It's just a nightmare! But Ino had not fully regained consciousness yet. She was still in the throes of terror as she screamed shrilly, "Help! Rape! Someone help me! Help! Rape!" Coalition military police were on the scene in minutes. Prisbin had called them using Ino's communicator, and he let them into the billet as soon as they arrived. By then, Ino was back in the living room armchair and had slightly calmed down. She allowed Prisbin to cover her with a blanket and sipped on a cup of water, though her hands were trembling. The MPs took Prisbin out of the room while Ino told her story. At one point, one of the soldiers left the billet and stepped into the hallway. Moments later, an alarm began to sound through the crew quarters section of the starbase. "Security alert, condition 4, a serene, computerized voice said. "ID will be required at all checkpoints." About 20 minutes later, after Ino repeated her story to the MPs for a second time, a medical team arrived, carrying a bright red box with white lettering that said, "First aid, for use on humans only." After a cursory examination, Ino was cleared for transport to the nearest medical bay. Truthfully, Ino felt she could have walked to the med bay without help, but the medics insisted she ride on a stretcher. Ino was shocked to see a few familiar faces waiting for her when she, the medics, and the MPs arrived in the med bay. Prisbin and Commander Tulani were both there, and it took Ino a few seconds to realize Prisbin was wearing handcuffs. What? What the... Not him! Ino gasped. It wasn't Prisbin. It was the Destican. A Destican, Tulani repeated, sounding somewhere between confused and scandalized. But security says there are no Desticans anywhere on the station. The situation got even more confusing after that. Because Ino claimed to have been sexually assaulted, a medical team was required to take Ino behind the privacy curtain for an examination. Minutes later, a very perplexed doctor opened up the curtain and spoke to both Ino and Tulani. "I don't know what to make of this," the doctor confessed. "There's no physical trauma anywhere on her, no evidence of an assault. Aside from elevated levels of adrenaline and serotonin, she's in perfect physical health." "But," Ino gasped, just as confused as everyone else, "it happened! I was violated by a Destican!" "There are no Desticans on the station," Commander Tulani started to repeat, but he was cut off. The medbay doors opened, and 2 men entered. The first was human. The other was a member of the fungoid Hulfier species. Both of them were dressed in black business suits and wore sunglasses despite being indoors. Each man also had a lapel pin over the left-hand breast pocket of his suit, shaped like the Coalition emblem. One of the medics tried to speak, but the black-suited human interrupted. "Stop right there. I am Special Agent Juliet, and this is my partner, Special Agent Kilo. We're from the CSA, and we're ordering all of you to get the fuck out of this room." Ino felt her blood run cold. The CSA, or Counterintelligence and Security Agency, was an interstellar spy agency that served the Coalition. Ino had served in the UN military for 2 years before joining the Coalition, and in all that time she learned little to nothing about the CSA. The agency was deeply shrouded in secrecy. The Hulfier agent raised one finger to point at Ino. His voice emitted from the underside of the mushroom cap that made up part of his head. "Ensign Esperanta stays. We must question her." Slowly, the medbay emptied out. The medics shut themselves in their own office, giving the CSA agents a suspicious glare before closing the window blinds. "We've heard something interesting on the MP radio network. You claim you saw a Destican here on the station," said Special Agent Juliet, who was as masculine as it is possible to be, despite the name. "Yes!" Ino cried out, "and no one believes me." "Well, we have reason to believe you," Agent Kilo said in his fungal voice. "On the one hand, we know beyond all shadow of a doubt that there are no Desticans on the station," Agent Juliet said, then quickly raised a hand to stop Ino's protest. "However, the evidence my partner and I dug up in our own investigation suggests that your story is still true." "What? But—" Ino's voice trailed off. Agent Kilo pulled a tablet computer out of his suit coat and started tapping away, speaking to Ino without looking at her. "Yours is the third story we've heard since the Fellowship started abducting our people," Agent Kilo explained. "However, you are the first we are able to interview about it. So please sit tight and answer our questions." Ino spoke to the CSA agents for just over 20 minutes, telling them her story as well as everything that happened in the hours leading up to the assault. And then, something bizarre happened. Agent Juliet suddenly reached up to his lapel pin and pushed it as though it was a button. "This is Juliet. I need an emergency patch-through to the Tau Ceti Starbase Command Network," Agent Juliet said. "Stand by," said a tinny voice that emanated from the lapel pin. Ino stared at it, amazed, trying to wrap her mind around the technology that made such a small communicator possible. Then the tinny voice spoke again. "You're live." Agent Juliet spoke in a loud, clear voice. "Khan, CIC, I have a new contact. Destican warship, frigate-class vessel, less than 20 kilometers away from the station. He's hiding under a cloaking field. Recommend full combat alert." Seconds later, alarms began to blare, much louder and more urgent than earlier. The medbay's lighting went into battle mode, dim and red. A woman's voice spoke over the intercom. "This is Angel Command placing Tau Ceti Starbase on battle stations. I repeat, battle stations. Authorization code Venera 12. Set ASW condition 2. Below and forward on your starboard side. Up and aft on your port side. All parties acknowledge." Agent Kilo pointed to a nearby window that faced outside. "There he goes!" Ino turned around just in time to see what he was pointing at. An alien starship, looking quite unlike anything she had ever seen before, suddenly became visible as its cloaking system was defeated by electromagnetic warfare systems on the starbase. The dark vessel was sleek and grim-looking, like the facade of a mausoleum. The unwelcome starship turned tail and flew away from the station at top speed while a Coalition destroyer gave chase. "That's a Destican vessel," Agent Kilo said. "Flag and colors of the Astral Fellowship." "They've been spying on us again," Agent Juliet replied grimly. Ino watched in horror as the Destican warship sped away from the starbase. This revelation did not make Ino feel any better. In fact, she felt traumatized. Somehow, a cloaked Destican starship had gotten close enough to the starbase for one of its crew to do what? Ino had no idea how her attacker had gotten from his ship into the starbase, into Ino's room, and then back onto his vessel so quickly without being caught. And the CSA agents had not answered those questions. Instead, they created more. "What the hell?" Ino gasped. "What's going on?" Agent Kilo looked at Ino, then turned his gaze toward the office where the medical team was sequestered. "I think we've got what we need," Agent Kilo said. "I'll do the medics. You do the girl." Agent Kilo stood up, a cloud of pale yellow dust descending from his mushroom cap. It appeared so suddenly that Ino had no choice but to breathe in some of the dust as the fungoid agent stepped away. Almost immediately, Ino felt a little drowsy. Agent Kilo stepped away and knocked on the door leading to the medbay office. Meanwhile, Agent Juliet started to retrieve an electronic device from his pocket with one hand. With the other, he popped a little green pill into his mouth and swallowed it. "Sir, please," Ino pleaded. "What happened to me? How did that Destican get in?" "Thanks to your testimony, I think we're closer to the truth now than we were an hour ago," Agent Juliet said. "To put it in terms you'll understand, we have reason to believe you were the victim of an extrasensory attack. For some time now, we've been investigating rumors that the Desticans were developing a weapon that attacks the conscious mind directly and triggers a mental phenomenon called parapsychosis. We believe you were on the receiving end of this weapon, that somehow this new technology forced you to experience a phantom assault and perceive it as though it was a real event." Ino blinked, wrapping her mind around what the agent had just said. Then she spoke slowly. "Are you saying that a Destican used telepathy on me?" Agent Juliet pulled a small object, shaped like a silver cigar case, from his pocket. He pushed a button, and the device deployed an extension. At the very top of the probe was a small diode, not unlike a camera flash. Agent Juliet pushed a button on the backside of the device, and it made a whirring noise. He looked at Ino and said, "The Coalition's Science Directorate has studied the question of extrasensory perception, what you call telepathy, in great detail for nearly a century. They have concluded that no such thing exists." "No such thing?" Ino repeated in shock. It made no sense. Telepathy would explain exactly how Ino was attacked. But then, Ino noticed the cylindrical object in Juliet's hand was audibly powering up. "What is that thing?" she asked. "This is the most important tool a CSA agent will ever use," Agent Juliet replied. "This is an electro-biomechanical neurotransmitting zero-synapse repositioner. But you're not going to remember that, so don't worry. It's going to isolate and edit a few electronic impulses in your brain, particularly the ones related to memory. It'll help you recover from this ordeal. Tell me, Miss Esperanta, are you fully human? No alien ancestry?" "No, I'm human," Ino said, too stunned and confused to say anything more complex. "Not a cyborg? No augments in your brain?" the agent asked, fiddling with the tiny controls on the device. "I'm just a girl. Nothing special." Ino felt like she was going numb to the world. She was vaguely aware that something was wrong, that the yellow cloud released by the fungoid had done something to her, but the brain fog was too strong to do anything about it. Agent Juliet adjusted his sunglasses. In the nearby office, Ino could hear Agent Kilo say, "Please stare at this for a moment." There was a bright flash of light from the office. followed by Agent Kilo speaking in a soft voice. She could not make out what he was saying. "Miss Esperanta, please stare into the diode for a moment," Agent Juliet said in a disarming tone. "Yeah, sure," Ino breathed. There was the smallest popping sound, and Ino was blinded. The Coalition Science Directorate has determined that telepathy is impossible. You had a night terror and awoke thinking the events of the dream were real. You are unharmed and in no danger. You will return to duty tomorrow. The voice spoke from far away and grew more distant still as Ino fell backwards into a deep, dreamless slumber.
To grow up strong and undo wrong. You're walking down a well-worn road. Something changed, but who would know? The smiles you get are poisoned well. The color you once knew is killed. And as you realize